Drag racing. Competitors and spectators from throughout the United States have jammed the roads leading through the scrub pine and palmettos, finding a mecca of speed unequaled in the southeastern United States. The 15th Annual National Hot Rod Association Gatornationals at Gainesville Raceway in north central Florida. Hundreds of racers have been attempting to qualify for today's finals, battling for a share of the $750,000 purse. With the intense pressure of close competition, incidents can happen. Ron Correnti of Otterbein, Indiana, took his shot at the straight-line quarter-mile racetrack. Correnti was near the finish line when disaster struck. A massive supercharger explosion literally blew the body off the car high into the air. The ensuing fire engulfed Correnti in flames. Protected by his fireproof driving suit, Correnti brought the bodiless car under control and to a safe stop. Another qualifying incident found Paul Smith of Boynton Beach, Florida, driving Jerome Bradford's brand new '84 Corvette-bodied funny car in much the same situation. Smith was near the end of the racetrack when an engine explosion led to a fire. This time, the fiberglass body stayed on the car and Smith struggled for control. The fire caused handling problems and the Inferno took a left turn off the track into the woods. There we discovered a totally destroyed race car, but we found an uninjured Paul Smith.
Paul, you feeling okay?
I'm fine.
Horrible fire and then the woods to contend with.
Brand new car, second run.
A tough break for Smith and Bradford. Earlier today, the largest crowd in Gatornationals history was treated to a touch of drama in the first round of eliminations as the low qualifier Tim Gross raced the number 9 funny car qualifier John Force. Based on his record-shattering 5.78-second elapsed time mark, Gross in the near lane should have been an easy victor. But nothing comes easy in championship drag racing as Tim Gross watched his early lead turn to defeat as mechanical problems slowed his car just a few hundred feet from the finish, allowing Force the win. The Top Fuel story has been one of speed as Joe Amato has run over 259 miles an hour. But legendary Big Daddy Don Garlits provided a first-round drama as he raced his arch-rival Shirley Muldowney. Moments before this confrontation, Steve Evans had a chance to talk to both Shirley and Don.
I really shouldn't be out here. I'm 52 years old and I really don't have the parts, but I'm having a heck of a good time. And of course, we orchestrated this race the best we could. You know, when I saw I was 14 and she was 6, I didn't make any more runs. I had one more run coming, but I just thought, boy, that would really make a dramatic first round. And so here it is. It's all set. It's like they wrote it in Hollywood and brought it here and produced it.
Shirley, you and Don Garlits have been going at it kind of hammer and tong the last few months.
We've raced more this season than we have in the last 5 years, so I think it's good he's back. I think his fans appreciate it, and it adds to the class. So I think it's good.
Shirley had the better of the two qualifying times, but the spectators displayed their support of Top Fuel Dragster Racing's legendary Big Daddy. Shirley had the advantage off the starting line, but mechanical trouble slowed her at half-track, and the KG veteran Garlits was right there to take advantage and the win. The crowd responded with cheers of victory for the home state favorite, as did Garlits' own crew members. And Garlits was a happy man.
You apparently lost track. Didn't know much like Pomona.
I guess. I don't know.
Well, the fans certainly loved it. You said before you were having some fun. Well, it's going to get even better.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Big Daddy.
Another big break for Don Garlits as he gets ready for round number 2. Hello, everybody. I'm Dave McClelland, and welcome to Gainesville Raceway for the 15th annual NHRA Gatornationals. You know, this is the 9th consecutive season that Diamond P Sports has been on hand to bring you the coverage of the excitement of championship drag racing. There's always excitement at the Gatornationals, and there's always something new. To find out what's new for 84, let's join Steve Evans.
Dave, there's a lot of noise and a lot of fun in the pit area here at the Gatornationals. In fact, it kind of looks like Times Square on New Year's Eve as the fans are shoulder to shoulder checking out all the new equipment. And believe me, they are not disappointed. There's a dramatic new look to funny cars. Kenny Bernstein's wind tunnel designed Ford Tempo. Raymond Beadle's latest Blue Max sports a Mustang body, as does Texan Billy Meyer. In Top Fuel, Joe Amato's outrageous new wing design no doubt helped him blast a new Top Fuel speed record of 259 miles an hour in qualifying. And he's hardly new, but he is back. 52-year-old Don Garlits returns to the Gatornationals after a 3-year absence. He says his fans demanded it.
Steve, all the racers' fans are jamming the grounds at the Gatornationals, being brought to you by Goodyear, who invite you to say hello to Vector. He's getting ready for round number 2. We'll be right back with all the action. A huge crowd at Gainesville Raceway for the 15th annual NHRA Gatornationals as we're set to go into the second round of Top Fuel racing. Dick LaHaye of Lansing, Michigan, himself a winner on the NHRA National Event Trail, is meeting the reigning world champion and defending Gatornationals champ, Gary Beck of Hemet, California. Top Fuel Racing is moving into the space age, and Gary Beck's car carries an onboard computer.
Computers have been around drag racing for several years now, monitoring various engine functions. But the new computer on Gary Beck's car will give them a totally different kind of database, thanks in a large degree to this trailing fifth wheel that stays on the asphalt at all times. This, coupled with a sensor at the front of the motor on the crankshaft and a sensor on the drive shaft where it comes out of the transmission, is going to give them some answers to questions that were previously unanswerable. For an example, you know the engine RPM, you know the shaft speed. That tells you the slippage in the clutch. You know the shaft speed, the gear in the rear end, and now you have ground speed thanks to this fifth wheel. That will tell you the tire slippage at any point down the racetrack. And the way this fifth wheel is mounted, its angularity tells you the tire growth, something we have always wondered about. We know they grow, but have never known how much. It's very, very interesting information. And in a sample printout here, we can see that every 16th of a second, it prints out engine RPM, the mile per hour, the distance traveled, the acceleration in G-forces, the position of the throttle, even the engine RPM, and a lot more things can be added.
Gary Beck and his car owner, Larry Miner, always on the leading edge of high-tech Top Fuel racing against Dick LaHaye in round number 2 of Top Fuel at the Gatornationals. Gary Beck, your number 1 qualifier. A big lead for Beck as they near half-track. At the finish line, he extends it with a 5.55 second elapsed time. His speed over 251 miles an hour. Beck now advances into the semifinals. For Dick LaHaye, his chance at an NHRA championship must come another day. Here is one of the true pioneers of Top Fuel racing. From Chicago, Illinois, the Golden Greek, Chris Karamessinis. He's racing the man that won the NHRA Winter Nationals Championship just about a month ago. This is Gary Ormsby. Picking up the national event trail about the middle of last season, Gary Ormsby is currently leading the points chase. His second-round competitor, the Golden Greek from Chicago, Chris Karamessinis, has a career in drag racing that dates back over 2 decades. For Ormsby, until he burst onto the national event scene, he was primarily a West Coast racer out of Roseville, California. But with the acquisition of Lee Beard as his crew chief, Ormsby has been dominating the Top Fuel class, winning the first event of the season. And Karamessinis up in smoke right off the starting line. It's Ormsby with a big lead to the finish and a 5.65 second elapsed time. His speed over 249 miles an hour. As we watch again, you watch the near lane. That's Chris Karamessinis going up in smoke. That means the tires losing traction. A slight loss of traction for Ormsby, but he recovers first, moves towards the finish line, and takes the big win.
Well, you got to one of those so-called living legends, the Greek, that time with a very nice 565, Gary.
Yeah, it shook a little bit that time, but it was a lot better. We've been having a little problem with shake, and it was a lot less this time.
What kind of an adjustment can you make to lose the shakes?
Well, we went back to our 15-inch tires, and tried to put a little bit more power in it. It was a little down on power the first run, too.
Motor sure living well.
Yeah, it's good shape.
All right, so this is the leader in the World Championship chase, Gary Ormsby.
And Steve, with every win, he's extending that points lead. Here's the man that has everybody talking. This is a brand new car, debuted at this race in qualifying just a few days ago. It has never been slower than 257 miles an hour. Joe Amato has run over 259 miles an hour, and some folks think that Joe Amato can run over 260. Here in round number 2, he is racing the living legend, Don Garlits, now of Ocala, Florida, moving out of his former home base in Tampa. For Joe Amato, he calls Old Forge, Pennsylvania, home. Joe Amato with a lot of new developments in this race car, and one of the most dramatic is that wing standing high above the race vehicle.
Joe Amato's latest speed secret is really not very difficult to find. It's the most radical, tallest wing yet installed on a top-fuel dragster. Why is it so high? Well, Joe says it's to get it into clean air, that if it's down in the conventional location, there's an awful lot of turbulence from the engine, from the exhaust headers, and it's not clean air as he'll find up here. Also, by laying the wing back at such a radical angle, if you remember your high school physics, it works as a lever. So you're not just using the airflow to push down, you're also levering more weight for traction onto the rear axle. And also by getting it to clean air and with this lever effect, you can run a much smaller wing. In fact, this wing is really a duplicate of the 1984 Indianapolis 500 wings, very aeronautically designed. In fact, Joe says you could flip it upside down, it would work almost as well. This is Indianapolis technology coming to drag racing. Does it work? Well, Joe blasted a national speed record the first time down the racetrack.
And the question on everyone's mind is, can he top that magic 260-mile-an-hour mark? But for this huge Florida crowd, they've got their favorite. It's their fellow Floridian, Don Garlits, Big Daddy himself. Now in round number 2 against Joe Amato. They met a month ago at the Winter Nationals. Amato won there. What will happen now? Garlits almost hits the guardrail, and look at Amato run. The time's 5.61 seconds, another 259-mile-an-hour run with absolutely no smoke, no engine damage, and Joe Amato advances to the semifinals. The second half of the Minor racing team. This is the boss, Larry Minor, in the near lane, racing against the veteran, Connie Coletta. From Ypsilanti, Michigan, Conrad Coletta has been another of those 2-decade stars in top fuel racing. For Larry Minor, out of the off-road racing wars, he makes his home in San Jacinto, California, and races 2 top fuel dragsters and a funny car in the sport of championship drag racing. Minor, the number 3 qualifier, has the opportunity, if he wins this race, to race his own hired driver, Gary Beck, in the semifinals. But he has got to stop Coletta, the bounty hunter, in this round. Both cars into the staging beams, the Christmas tree, indicating the green light, a good start for both drivers. And it is Minor in the near lane and Coletta side by side at the finish by a matter of a couple of feet. Larry Minor wins it. 5.63 seconds elapsed time. His speed over 246 miles an hour. Let's watch again. You can see just how close it is. The 2 cars leave the starting line as if they are one. It appears that Coletta has pulled just a few feet advantage. But in the middle of the course, here comes Minor, and at the finish, it's his win.
So now it's Larry Minor and Gary Beck racing each other again.
Yeah, the same round as last year, too. Well, we'll see if we can do a little better than last year.
We'll be looking forward to it.
For the boss of the Minor racing team, Larry Minor, he lost last year, but they'll be racing again as we get set for the semifinals. Here's the matchups. Joe Amato against Gary Ormsby, and Larry Minor meets Gary Beck for the 2nd year in a row. Don't go away. We'll be right back at the Gatornationals. Annual NHRA Gatornationals, and we're getting ready for the 2nd round of competition in one of the most exciting categories of all, the fabulous funny cars. Over 2,500 horsepower under the fiberglass replica bodies of late model American cars. This matches Kenny Bernstein against Mark Oswald. Bernstein, the winner of the U.S. Nationals title. You saw it all on Diamond P Sports last year, up against Mark Oswald, the driver for the Louisiana-based team of Candies and Hughes. And some problems set in for Candies and Hughes as Oswald is guiding the car backwards. The crew helping push it back. Something apparently wrong with the car, and that gives an easy run to Kenny Bernstein in his Ford Tempo-bodied entry. This car has been in the wind tunnel, and it's got a lot of developments that Kenny says are going to make it one of the fastest funny cars ever built. Kenny already has speeds over 255 miles an hour to his credit. He has the option here of taking an easy run. What's he going to do? It looks like he's going to hold it all the way through. And for Bernstein, look at that, 5.79 seconds and a new record-shattering speed of 257 miles an hour as Mark Oswald looks on with his car owners Leonard Hughes and Paul Candies, disappointed, obviously, going out here in round number 2 of racing at the Gatornationals. Our next pair already fired. This is Billy Meyer from Waco, Texas. The fiberglass body being lowered down over the driver and the engine. The sleek Mustang body cutting through the air, providing the stability for these drivers to run over 255 miles an hour. Let's go down now to Steve, who's got Kenny Bernstein.
Kenny Bernstein, on a single run, sets the all-time funny car speed record. Kenny, 257 miles an hour. You already have a backup.
Boy, that's super, I'll tell you. It's tough out there today, but this car, it's just going right down through there nice and smooth, and Armstrong and the crew, it's their baby. They're doing it.
You're the only one I've heard use the word smooth.
Yeah, I'm really surprised because everyone is having some trouble, but we're not shaking. It may be quivered a taste then, you know, just a teeny bit, but nothing bad at all.
So 570s, 257, what more will the track hold?
Well, I don't think it'll hold much more for sure.
And it's cooling off a little bit. That could help.
It could. I hope it does.
Kenny Bernstein goes into the semis. What a pass.
Bernstein giving credit to his crew chief, Dale Armstrong, also one of those teams using the onboard computer. Here's our next pair. Billy Meyer in the near lane against Al Segrini. Segrini of southeastern Massachusetts, winner of the recent Winter Nationals Championship. For Billy Meyer, he started in the sport at the age of 16, has never driven anything but a fuel-burning funny car. Segrini with his work cut out for him. Billy Meyer, this brand new car has been running in the 580s. The car capable of elapsed times even quicker, according to Billy. For Al Segrini and his Pontiac Trans Am bodied car, he says, I'm going to stop him right here. And it's Billy Meyer out in front. The car beginning to move towards the center line. He pulls away from it and drives to the finish. A little bit of smoke out of the engine. 6.17 seconds the elapsed time as Al Segrini, with lots of problems, just shuts the motor off and coasts through. Our next pair sitting fired, approaching the water, getting ready to do their burnout. This is John Collins from Long Beach, California, qualified number 2 in this very tough funny car field. Against Collins is John Force. We saw him earlier as he took the big win over the number 1 qualifier, Tim Gross. Here is Al Segrini, the winner of the Winter Nationals, very disappointed.
Well, Billy Meyer always pleased with a win light, but he won't be pleased with the performance. 617.
No, well, it left on 7 cylinders and shook my brains out, and I had to lift a couple times, and so we're lucky just to get the wind light.
Kenny Bernstein is the only driver that has come down here and said his car is smooth, not shaking.
Well, ours didn't first round at all. I don't know what happened then except the drop cylinder caused it with no horsepower.
John Collins and John Force in this second round of racing. For Collins, his best performance ever. He qualified with a 5.84 second elapsed time. His home base is Long Beach, California. John Force, a bridesmaid many times from Fullerton, California.
You haven't won the big one yet. What is it going to take? What is the missing link for your team?
We've naturally, up to now, it's been experience on my driving part, getting a crew chief like Larry Frazier that can make the car consistent where I can learn how to drive, and naturally the money. And I think the only thing's left is a little luck like we had today.
You know, you are so down on your driving, but if you talk to the competition, they have tremendous respect for your driving ability.
Well, you're the first that said that. Maybe they don't want to tell me they got to race me, but I appreciate that. And we have worked real hard, and I've practiced a lot and try to drive the car on a repeating type of basis. So me and the crew chief Frazier, we can keep the program working in the same consistency that it's had.
John Collins using an engine built by Lee Beard and Gary Ormsby out of the top fuel camp. And look at him go as John Force goes up in smoke. Near the center line, he drives away for it. And for Collins, his elapsed time, 6.09 seconds. That's the amount of time it takes to travel the racetrack, a quarter of a mile in a straight line from a standing start. For John Force, this is not to be his first ever big win. You see in the far lane, Force going up in smoke. That meaning the tires losing traction, and that automatically is giving the win to Collins.
Well, this is John Collins' finest year of drag racing in a long, long time. Another round down.
It is, Steve, and I'll tell you, it was a tough one when you come up against Force. He's done real well for the last 12 months, and we got by the snake first round and Force the second round. So we've taken two easy ones here, and
the center line got a little close.
Well, yeah, the car got pretty loose out there that time, and I had to backpedal a little bit and then get back in it. But it'll run better.
6:09.
That was bad. That was why it got loose out there. It slowed down when it got loose out there.
Okay, so John Collins goes into semifinals. Those words have to sound good.
John Collins defeating Don Prudhomme in round number 1 and John Force in round number 2 to reach the semifinals. This now our final pair in the second round of funny car racing. Tom the Mongoose McEwen in the near lane completing his burnout, and crewman Fred Miller for the Blue Max completing the starting procedure on 2,500 horsepower plus. The Mustang fiberglass body drops down over driver Raymond Beadle as he approaches the water to get ready to do his burnout. The burnout's necessary to heat the tires. They provide more traction the hotter they get. This is a race between two real veterans of funny car wars. Tom McEwen in the Corvette-bodied car in the near lane hails from Fountain Valley, California, regarded by many as one of the premier drivers of any type of vehicle. For Raymond Beadle, operator of a complex of racing equipment and machinery, including the funny car, a NASCAR car, and a sprint car, Raymond Beadle and the Blue Max operation will be racing, and there's something going wrong with the Coors Corvette. The body comes up. That means there are serious problems underneath, and they've obviously shut it off. And what a break for the Blue Max, Ray Beadle out of Dallas, Texas. He gets an easy go into the semifinals. He heads towards the center line, backs out of it, and just coasts through. So it's a big break for Raymond Beadle as his competition, Tom the Mongoose McEwen, suffered some problems on the starting line. McEwen taking off his helmet and his fire mask, and that's a tough break for him. Let's take a look at the semifinal standing. John Collins against Billy Meyer, Ray Beadle against Kenny Bernstein in Funny Car Eliminator. We'll be coming back to the Gatornationals. In Gainesville, Florida, this is the 15th annual NHRA Gatornationals. I'm Dave McClelland, and working with me this weekend is Steve Evans.
Dave, a tremendous number of improvements have been made to Gainesville Raceway since we were last here, the most noticeable of which has got to be this beautiful new 3-story press and hospitality tower. And with me is the man most responsible for these improvements, the founder and chairman of the National Hot Rod Association, Wally Parks. And Wally, it's obvious that you intend your facilities to keep pace with the performance of the race cars.
Well, we definitely do, and these are upgradings that we've needed for a long time. It wasn't until we actually purchased the property 2 months ago that we started on the major improvements, but what it represents is drag racing's commitment to the Gainesville community, and I'll tell you, the support that we've gotten here is just unbelievable.
Well, Wally, the crowd is still streaming in. It appears that the only major problem NHRA may have this year is enough seats for the fans.
Well, that's always a good problem to have. We're fortunate in drag racing. We can usually get by with about a third as many seats as we have people because the people are rotating from the pits and to see their favorite classes. But it's a good situation, and it's one that will continue to improve as years go along.
Looks like a tremendous season. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We'll be participating in that season, Steve, as Diamond B Sports will be providing coverage of the upcoming NHRA Cajun Nationals, the Spring Nationals, the U.S. Nationals, and a special feature presentation of the Big Bud Shootout. We hope each and every one of you can join us for those programs. In addition to the professional categories of racing that we'll be covering today, some sportsman racing has been going on throughout this Gatornationals weekend. In pro stock motorcycle racing, the final round found Terry Vance on a Suzuki against Charles Gressman, also on a Suzuki in the near lane. Vance extended his lead as he headed to the finish line and won it at over 152 miles an hour. In stock eliminator handicap racing, where the slower car gets a physical head start over the faster. We see the station wagon of Thomas Ward of Florida leading Gainesville, Florida's own Dan Dvorak, all the way from start to finish. The winner in stock eliminator, Tom Ward from Grand Island, Florida. In super stock eliminator, it's Robert Smith against Philip Webb, and here the red light for Phil Webb gives the win automatically to the Camaro in the far lane. That is Robert Smith of Hagerstown, Maryland. In super gas competition, Richard Godley of Moultrie, Georgia squared off against Craig Cates of Pembroke Pines, Florida. The 83 Firebird came out the victor at the finish line over Craig Cates in the Vega. In competition eliminator, Larry Torres of Los Angeles racing Virginia's Ronnie Bowler in the Corvette in the near lane. Torres driving his 84 Buick Century from start to finish to the win at over 141 miles an hour. In top alcohol funny car, very similar to their nitro-burning counterparts, Brad Anderson from California against Alabama's Bogey Kell in the near lane, and Anderson with the big lead and the big win at over 216 miles an hour. And top alcohol dragster saw the crowd favorite Darrell Gwynn of Miami, Florida in the near lane against Don Irvin of San Diego, California, and getting to the finish line first, the dragster of Darrell Gwynn at 6.47 seconds elapsed time. Our congratulations going to all the sportsman category champions at this 15th annual Gator Nationals. A tip of the hat to our sportsman champs. In professional racing, it is the factory hot rods, the pro stock eliminators. Butch Leal in the black Pontiac Firebird against Warren Johnson driving the Oldsmobile Cutlass. These the ultimate of the factory cars. This one driven by Warren Johnson, the winner of the last race, the World Finals in 1983. He is racing the California Flash, now living in Ohio. This is Butch Leal. Leal in the near lane, driving the Rod Shop Pontiac, the Oldsmobile of Warren Johnson in the far lane. They're evenly matched, 500 cubic inches, 2 carburetors each, on gasoline. The cars weigh 2,350 pounds, and they run over 180 miles an hour. Towards the finish line they go, and it's Warren Johnson with the win. 7:74 his elapsed time. His speed here a slowing 172 miles an hour as he puts away Butch Leal in the semifinals. This the Pontiac Firebird of the Team Strange entry of Kuntz and Clark. Don Kuntz is the driver. He is in the far lane of the racetrack. In the near lane, the runner-up here 1 year ago, and now the favorite going in as he has eliminated last year's champion. This is Frank Iaconio from Totowa, New Jersey. His competition is Don Kuntz from Cayuga, Illinois. Kuntz at over 181 miles an hour has burst onto the scene with this Kuntz and Clark Pontiac Firebird. But for Frank Iaconio, his big moment came in the second round of racing when he defeated Lee Shepard in the Rare and Morrison Camaro. Shepard, the defending champion, and look at the lead by Iaconio. He has got a lead over Don Kuntz. Can Kuntz catch him? It's going to take everything he's got, and he did not. Frank Iaconio with the win moves into the finals of Pro Stock Eliminator. Let's go down to the Larry Minor pit area and join Steve.
A lot of activity here in the Larry Minor racing camp. As for the second straight year, it is Larry Minor, the team owner, up against his now world champion driver Gary Beck. Deja vu. The two met a year ago at the same position in the semifinals, with Gary winning a clean victory over the boss. But as the season went on, whenever the two of them raced, Larry couldn't even lose properly, stumbling in the winner's circle of the Cajun Nationals. The idea is to take the Team A Gary Beck car to another world title. Larry Minor races his top fuel dragster because he likes to. Some have suggested it's a blocking maneuver, but that is not really true. Larry is dedicated to top fuel, likes to see as many cars at the races as possible, and if Gary should be eliminated by another car, then he indeed hopes to go on to victory. But the two are going to go to the starting line together again here. Some question the wisdom of that after what we saw last year, especially at the Cajuns. But if I was a betting man, I think I'd bet the farm on Gary Beck to go into the final round here.
Steve, that's quite possible, but I'll tell you one thing. This man right here may be the spoiler, Joe Amato. We'll be back to the Gator Nationals in just a moment. Gatornationals, and we're set for the semifinals of Top Fuel Eliminator. Jerry Amato, the wife of Joe Amato, the fastest man in the history of drag racing, backing his car up into its own tracks after the burnout. This is a rematch of the recent Winter Nationals final, where Joe Amato, driving his old car, lost to Gary Ormsby. Ormsby in the far lane is the current points leader in the World Championship points chase in Top Fuel Eliminator. His crew chief, Lee Beard, checking everything over, making sure it's just right. He directs Gary Ormsby. Now it's all up to you. Head to the starting line. Tim Richards, the crew chief and engine builder for Joe Amato, does identically the same. Now, the pressure on the drivers. They concentrate on the Christmas tree because the start is all important. A few feet of advantage at the starting line may turn into a car length or more at the finish, and it's up in smoke for Ormsby. Amato heads to the finish line and wins the race, and he has done it. 260 miles an hour for Joe Amato. His elapsed time, 5.58 seconds, and this overflow crowd at the Gatornationals has seen the first ever 260 miles an hour. Let's watch how it was done. The race was won right there when Gary Ormsby went up in smoke. For Joe Amato, that advantage parlayed it into a couple of car lengths at the finish and 260 miles an hour.
We haven't run slower than 257, and that was the old record.
We're just in sneak. I've been saying all day, people all been coming up and saying, when are you going to go through 60? But we want to win the race, the points chase. We want to be a world champion, and that's what we're here to do. So you can't let the speed, you know, it's nice to say I can go 260, but you can't let that get you, because we have to, win the race and try and tune the car for track conditions. So we've been just kind of sneaking up on it. And he made a little fine tune that time, and he said, if we're going to do it, this is going to be the run. And apparently he knew what he was talking about, because there it was.
Well, someone once said victory is fleeting, but history is forever, and no one will ever take your name out of the drag racing record books.
That's what's so nice about being able to first one to go 260.
Congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
Joe Amato goes in the final round with a triumphal 260-mile-an-hour run.
For Joe Amato and his crew chief, Tim Richards, a well-oiled combination.
60. You told me to do it, and I did it for you.
And for his wife, Jerry, 260 miles an hour. And here's the rematch of 1983. The car owner, Larry Minor, racing his #1 driver and the reigning world champion and the defending Top Fuel champion, Gary Beck. The cars look identical. In the near lane, it is Gary Beck. In the far lane, it is the boss, Larry Minor. Beck has been the low qualifier. He's got everything going for him except that speed record now held by Joe Amato. And it is Beck off the starting line. First, some problems setting in for Minor. And through the finish line, lights goes Gary Beck, 5.62 seconds. The Top Fuel final, Joe Amato against Gary Beck. What a matchup. The quickest in the race and the fastest in the race. We're set now for the semifinals of Funny Car Eliminator. It will be Texas Thunder, the nitro-burning horsepower of 2 Dallas, Texas-based funny cars. This is Kenny Bernstein, the winner of the U.S. Nationals. Raymond Beadle, the driver for the Blue Max. His engine started. He lets Bernstein do his burnout first. Obviously, Beadle does not want to build as much heat in his motor as Bernstein uses in his. The drivers meet before the run. They work out who's going to start first, who is going to do the longer burnout. So when all of the burnout procedures are completed, they both approach the starting line at the same time. Let's go to Steve.
Gary Beck looks back at the 260-mile-an-hour race car he'll have to face in the final round. A 562, Gary, but you give up lane choice to Joe.
Man, that's something. It felt like a pretty good run, too. Yeah, it's amazing. On 260, I'm real glad to see it's a tremendous racing team over there. Joe Amato and their entire gang, Tim Richards, certainly. It's amazing. It's a milestone in our sport. I mean, I'd have loved to have done it, but I'm glad they did it. It's a great accomplishment.
And quite a tribute to your team. A lot of people thought Larry would just shut it off on the starting line, whatever. You guys raced for it.
Well, we're trying to. That's the 5th time we raced. I got him 3 and he's got 2.
Little inter-shop rivalry.
Yeah, that's it.
You heard it a little bit this time, Gary. At least the smoke indicated that.
Is that right? That could be. I don't know.
So Gary Beck, very serious as always, going into what should be an incredible final round. Top Fuel indeed is still the king of drag racing.
And Beck headed over to shake hands with that final round opponent, Joe Amato. We'll see them in just a few moments. Now on the starting line, it is funny car semifinals. The Blue Max, Raymond Beadle against Kenny Bernstein in the near lane. Bernstein has been dominant throughout eliminations. Can the string hold? Into the staging beams comes both cars. The tree's green and Bernstein's gone. The Blue Max Mustang goes up in smoke, and Bernstein with a Ford tempo. Look at the elapsed time, 5.79 seconds. No slouch in the speed department at over 256 miles an hour. John Collins against Billy Meyer. This the final race in this semifinal round of competition. Again, Collins first out of the water box, first to do the burnout. Billy Meyer from Waco, Texas, deciding to wait just a moment or two before he starts the engine in his car. The body down, and now his Mustang-bodied creation heads across the starting line, laying down that trail of rubber so important to these racers to provide the traction they need. Steve?
Back-to-back 579s, 256.
Well, that's super. The consistency, obviously, right now with us today. One more time, though, it's got to do it to make it all worthwhile.
And lane choice seems to be just mandatory if you're going to win here today, so far.
So far, as we said earlier, the left lane doesn't seem as good as the right, and we certainly want to stay over unless something strange happens to the right lane.
Billy Meyer has been racing funny cars since he was 16 years old. That's right, the first car he ever drove down a drag strip was a nitro-burning funny car. He has never driven anything since that time. This a brand new car, only the second race ever. His competition, John Collins, number 2 qualifier, and Collins begins to pull away. Both cars very close, and it is John Collins with a tremendous upset win. And going into his first ever final round, let's watch again. You see Collins and Meyer both having problems as they leave the starting line. Meyer's car losing traction ever so slightly, a wisp of smoke out of John Collins. As we look from another angle, you see they are still locked together side by side as they enter the timing trap, and at the finish line, only a few feet separate the two cars.
John Collins comes down and tells Billy Meyer, I thought you beat me. And well, he might have, because Meyer was closing at 239 miles an hour, much faster than John himself. But for John Collins, his first ever final round appearance at an NHRA national event.
Oh, Steve, it sure is. I'm real pleased. My car didn't run worth a darn that time, though. I don't know what was wrong with it. It wouldn't leave the starting line. And Billy, like I say, when I got out of the car, I thought Billy had won because he came by me pretty fast in the lights.
The finals of funny car coming up. Kenny Bernstein against John Collins as we come back to Gainesville, Florida, and the Gatornationals. Finals at the Gatornationals. We're in Gary Beck's pit area. We thought there might have been a problem, but just normal maintenance getting Gary Beck's car ready for the final round appearance against Joe Amato. Gary Beck, the defending champion here at the Gatornationals, had to give up lane choice as it went to Joe Amato by virtue of the lower elapsed time in the semifinals. Here's the finals in Pro Stock Eliminator. The Oldsmobile in the far lane of Warren Johnson. An Oldsmobile Cutlass, a 500 cubic inch engine. The car with Warren behind the wheel, weighing 2,350 pounds, running on gasoline through 2 4-barrel carburetors. His competition runner-up here 1 year ago from Totowa, New Jersey, Frank Iaconio. Finished number 2 in the world last season in the World Championship points chase. His Chevrolet Camaro, again 500 cubic inches, 2 4-barrel carburetors, gasoline for fuel. The best of the factory hot rods. Oldsmobile versus Chevrolet, and an advantage to Warren Johnson off the starting line. Warren's car has been faster all week long. He gets very close and almost loses control, but Warren Johnson wins Pro Stock title. 7.64 seconds elapsed time. His speed, 180 miles an hour. Watch again as Warren Johnson pulls an initial lead right off the starting line over Frank Iaconio. For the second year in a row, Iaconio must settle for the runner-up spot. But let's watch from a different angle. Watch near the finish line as Warren Johnson almost loses control of the Oldsmobile Cutlass. He reaches for the parachute release. You see his hand up towards the roof of the car. The parachute begins to deploy as Warren Johnson wins it.
Warren Johnson found the miss in his motor, defeats Frank Iaconio, whole shot, and then big trouble on this end.
Yeah, just car got loose. I don't know if there was something on the track. I don't see anything wrong with the chassis, but it just got completely loose. I had to get out of it completely in the lights and hope he didn't pass me.
Well, that got your attention, I'll bet.
Well, it got mine for sure.
Well, congratulations. Anytime you can beat Frank Iaconio, you've really accomplished something, and it looks like it's going to be a terrific season for WJ.
Well, Frankie's one of the best gentlemen in the sport. So it's a pleasure for me to beat him, not from the standpoint of beating him, but just to race him and win.
Congratulations again to Warren Johnson.
WJ, the Pro Stock champion. All eyes on this huge crowd riveted on the starting line as we get set for the final in Funny Car Eliminator. Kenny Bernstein has been the dominant car, but the surprising John Collins from Long Beach, California, qualified number 2 and is now in the finals against Bernstein. Into the staging beams, both cars leave on a green light. And it's a very close race. Kenny Bernstein in the near lane begins to pull away. And a tremendous run. And ladies and gentlemen, 260 miles an hour by a funny car as Kenny Bernstein shatters all performance standards for speed. And crew chief Dale Armstrong receiving the congratulations for Kenny Bernstein's effort as he drove that Ford tempo-bodied car through the entire quarter-mile distance and the timing trap to run over 260 miles an hour.
The first funny car ever tested in wind tunnel, thanks to Ford, and boy, did it pay off. 260, it sounds like science fiction.
It's getting that way, isn't it? I'm telling you, I don't know where it's going to stop. It's just going to get better.
Let's hope the winning doesn't stop for the Budweiser King and Kenny Bernstein. Here comes a crew that is second to none right now in funny car racing. Still cannot believe what they saw on the scoreboard. 260 miles an hour.
The team that made it happen, Kenny Bernstein and Dale Armstrong. Joe Amato, the fastest man in the history of the sport, shaking his head at his crew chief, Tim Richards, saying, what can we do to top that? For Gary Beck, an unusual situation in the final as Beck had to give away lane choice. That means Joe Amato ran quicker than Gary Beck did in the semifinals. The lane choice went to Amato. He took the right-hand lane, where he's been running all day. So has Gary Beck. So Beck had to reprogram his car to run that left-hand lane. A close race off the starting line, but here comes Amato. And at the finish, it's Joe Amato, and look at the speed. 262 miles an hour. The crowd showing their absolute disbelief as the crew just shakes their heads. Joe Amato takes on the defending champ, the #1 qualifier and the reigning world champion, beats him in the finals and sets a speed record in the process. Let's go down to Steve Evans with Joe Amato.
Talk about your dream drag race. The #1 car in the world against the #2 car in the world. The world's quickest Gary Beck. The world's fastest Joe Amato, who has now gone even faster as the top fuel dragster set takes that speed record back from the funny cars. 262.
We had to take it from the funny cars. When Timmy saw him, we were staging up, he says, you got to go 261, he said. But he just gave me a little more power. What did he go in ET?
Who cares? You won the Gator Nationals, and you left first by 0.04 of a second. You did everything right, my friend.
Yeah, well, some days you get up right and you do the right things, and boy, I've got the crew. You know, you surround yourself with people that make you look good, and that's what I've got, a lot of good people. And
well, you certainly do. You certainly do. And Gary Beck in the background crawls out of his car, a smile on his face. He's done the best that he can possibly do. In that kind of a drag race, boy, there are no losers. The fans, of course, the big winner. You're looking at him, the fastest man ever in a quarter of a mile, Joe Amato. Gary Beck says 262.
An incredible finish to a tremendous drag race, the first ever 260-mile-an-hour times by both funny car and top fuel. We'll be right back. Gatornationals, Joe Amato receiving the congratulations from his wife, Jerry. He's the fastest man in the sport at over 262 miles an hour. Steve, your final thoughts.
Certainly one of the best drag races we have ever had the pleasure of covering. Kenny Bernstein, 260. Joe Amato, 262. The record books took a beating today at the Gatornationals in Gainesville, Florida.
Our congratulations to all of the winners and the record setters at this 15th annual Gator Nationals. For Steve Evans, I'm Dave McClellan saying so long from Gainesville, Florida. The executive producer of Diamond P Sports is Harvey Palish. Produced and directed by John B. Mullen. The 1984 Gatornationals were brought to you by Motorcraft. Quality parts for all makes of cars and trucks. Motorcraft exceeds the need. And by Fabergé. Make every day your Brute Day with Brute by Fabergé. And by Goodyear. Say hello to Goodyear's Vector, the new design in radial tires. Promotional consideration provided for and a fee paid by Minwax Finish. America's favorite wood finishes for 80 years. Minwax makes it easy to get professional results. Bring out the beauty with wood finishing produced by Minwax. And by Surge Breath Mints. You never know when you're going to wind up face to